Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So apologies for missing last week's video. I was at Welland Steam Rally. I was there from Wednesday till Sunday, so I had no time to edit. And it was a bit of a mad rush. Well, that's what this video is about, getting the tractor ready that I took down to Welland to do the road run on the Thursday. This job quickly turned from, it's supposed to be half a day's job putting it back together, ended up being a full sort of redesign and rebuild. I know a lot of you are not into the tractor content, but it's not really about the tractor. It's more about the process of putting that engine in that tractor. Well, that's what it sort of turned into anyway. But yeah, hope you enjoy the video. So you'll have seen this in the background. I think it's been in the background ever since I started doing YouTube. It was together, and then I split it again to take the little gearbox out that's in there, the little step-up box that it has in it, which is in this box. It's like it's a Sherman step-up box, it's called. It's like an overdrive gearbox that bolts into there instead of the original input shaft. Well, I actually have two of them tractors. One has got a Nissan engine, Nissan Terrano engine, with the same little step-up gearbox, and that one has a Daihatsu engine. So I had my Nissan one in bits because it snapped the centre out of the clutch plate. So while I had that in bits, I thought I'll take the little gearbox out and renew the bearings in it, put new bearings in. But then when I had it in bits, I found that one of the little shafts in the gearbox was worn. So I thought, well, if that one's worn, the one in the other one is maybe worn as well. So that's why I took that one in bits again, to see if the shaft was worn and to put new bearings in it before I get finished. Anyway, these are the little shafts out the gearbox. So this goes in the bottom, and then there's like two gears that run on it that have needle roller bearings, and you can see it's worn into that shaft. So I didn't want to put new bearings in onto that and then new bearings on a worn shaft. That was the one out of the other gearbox. They're both worn in the same place. For some reason one's opposite way around to the other. They have a big bit at one end and then a notch. And this one has a big bit at one end and a notch at that end. And then this one has a big bit at that end but a notch at the other end. But anyway, I wasn't really sure what to do with them, or where to get new ones made, or what to make them out of. But anyway, I did some research. I did take it to someone that said they could make it for me, but they had it for 6 months and they never did anything with it. So I went and got it back and decided to make my own. I got some 01 grade tool steel. I roughed it down to size myself, just down to the basic size. And I sent it away, got it hardened and tempered. And then last week I took it to someone who ground it down to final size for me. So that is now ground down to final size, and it's 63 Rockwell or HRC, whatever. So it should be as hard as them. But the person that ground them down to final size didn't do the notch on the end like what them have. So I've done one myself last night. So we're going to do the other one now. So obviously with that being hard, I can't just put it in the milling machine and mill a flat on it. So what I've done is I've mounted a 9-inch grinding disc onto an arbor and got that in the mill. As I say, I've done one already, set the bar up in there like that, and then set me distance that I want from the end first, and then I was going down 2 mil at a time and then just going backwards and forwards with the bed until I got down to the right depth. It seemed to work pretty well. Right, so that's the second one done as well. Got a little bit warm there, so that bit might have lost its hardness, but that bit is just in the gearbox casing. That's just, and then that's just to sort of locate it and stop it spinning. I think where the bearings run, be fine. It's, you know, the heat hasn't travelled far enough down. That one, it's deeper that way, but not as far down the shaft. So that one didn't get hot at all. So yeah, that's them done. I'll probably bring the Nissan grey Fergie in at the weekend and put that one back together. And then I can take that, I'm hoping to take it to Welland Steam Rally. Not to enter it, just for road room. But the Nissan one is sort of tried and tested and everything's made for it, where this one, I'd have a lot of extra bits to make for it. So if I get the Nissan one back up and running, then at least that one's sorted. Right, so this is a little gearbox, or the gearbox casing, and these are the bits out of it. The way it works is, in the gearbox, you do usually have an input shaft like this, but it'd be twice as long. And in the bell housing on the gearbox, it's just a load of empty space. So what you do is you unbolt the original input shaft, and then you put this part of the gearbox in. This bolts onto the front of your normal gearbox, grey Fergie gearbox. And then once you bolt that bit in, you bolt this bit to it, and then that input shaft to that. If you have this gearbox in low, then the power just goes from this shaft. That is on there like that, and then there's a selector somewhere, that, which joins that onto there. So it's just straight through, so you just normal gear ratio of your normal gearbox. But then if you change this into high, then that slides back, and instead of that joining that to there, the power then goes from this gear, and then this gear is in the bottom. I don't know which way around it goes, one way or the other. And then the power goes from there to that, through these gears, and then back up onto that gear. So it's sort of laid out like that in the gearbox, which then gears it up. Like that, gears it up. So from there down to that one, back up to that one, and then back. Then that goes into your normal gearbox. So these new shafts that I've just made, they go through that gear, and then they have, I think there's still one in that one, it has like needle rollers in there that run on that shaft, and then that spins in that gearbox casing. Flat that I ground onto the shaft is, it's for that, and then that stops the shaft coming back out again. So that hole is slightly bigger than this hole. Yeah, that'll be a press fit through from that way. I have new bearings to go in there, new bearing for that, and I think there was a bearing on there. I took it off when I got all the numbers off the bearings, but it was that long ago now when I took it all in bits, I can't really remember what I did. I'll put the bearing on there first, and then we'll knock that one out. New one's in there, and then do that one. Beautiful. So that's that shaft in there, and them gears in. It's real nice. That feels lovely and smooth. Yeah, and that's pressed in there. Nice tight fit. It's not quite flush with the front, but it is exactly the same length as the old one. So it's supposed to be. And then yeah, there's a tab there that stops it coming out that way, and then a tab on there that stops it coming out that way. There is a new bearing for there, but that one does look fairly new. Doesn't look like it's... I don't know, I can't remember whether I changed it or not. That raise looks perfect, so I might just leave that bearing. Might leave that one in. I don't know if I've changed it already, I can't remember. Yeah, that's for that shaft. And then there's that goes in there onto that selector fork. But I can't remember which way around it goes. Right, so I've got that back together now. I put it together just to test it to see if I'd got that selector thing on the right way, and I have. So it needs coming bits again anyway, because you bolt this bit on first into the gearbox of the tractor. I can show you on that one actually, because that bit's still in there. And they go on the inside of there. So you can see when we look in here, you bolt that bit in first, and then you bolt the rest of the gearbox to that bit. So there's a lot of open space inside there. So then you do have to fill this up with oil before you put it in, but then I think it does share oil with the gearbox through the bearing as well. But yeah, there isn't much more I can do with that now on the bench. That's ready to go into the tractor. Right, so this is me other little grey Fergie. So that one over there has a Daihatsu engine, this has a Nissan engine. So this pretty much, well, it was complete, it was a running tractor. And then, yeah, I took that little step-up box out to put new bearings in it and found that shaft was worn out. So I've got it split now, I've got it brought back into the workshop. It was just bolted back together with a few bolts just so I could wheel it about. But now I've got it split again so we can put that little gearbox back in here. Right, I've got that little gearbox back in there, so that's all ready to go. All shafts and everything back in, bearing in, gearbox full of oil, and the cable connected back up to select the gears. So that's all good. And I've got the clutch and flywheel put back on there. But I think I'm gonna, while it's all in bits, I'm gonna alter it a bit. So when I bought this tractor, this engine was already in this tractor, but the conversion plate was not very well made. It was just a ring sort of round the outside of the flywheel, which, so that like all this you could see into the flywheel, and there wasn't much strength to it. So I took the flywheel off, skimmed a bit off the back, and now my conversion plate goes all the way to the middle. But I just laid the old one on top of the new one and drilled the holes through it. And when you join it back up, I don't think the holes are quite bang on in the middle. So I'm going to alter that. I'm going to either make a new conversion plate, or I'll weld them holes up and re-drill them. But I'll have to make a thing to mark where the holes are. And I also don't like these chassis rails sort of stick out too much, and they just don't look very good. I don't like them. So I made all them. When I made the new conversion plate, I also made the chassis rails because it just had some crappy frame underneath it before. It was not very well made. I think there's only 2 bolts that actually held the front end on. But that was probably over 10 years ago now, and my engineering skills have come on a long way since then, so I think I can do a better job. One of the reasons why I did it like that is because when you look at the other side, it has this stupid sump on it. So that must have been designed to fit round the axle when it was in the Terrano. This is our Nissan Terrano engine. But now when it's in the tractor, obviously it doesn't need that on there. There's all that space under there. And this sump sticks out quite a long way. So that's why I sort of did it like that, and then it cleared the sump. I did both sides the same. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop the side of the sump off, alter the sump so the sump is the same width as the tractor, and then I can run my new chassis rails from sort of here on the other side, down the side of the engine, up to them, and then I'll alter this as well. I'll put, instead of that plate being there, I'll weld a plate on here, so then the chassis rails will come across down and then down onto that bit, because when them bolts are in there, it's sort of sat on that one, and then when that one's in, it's nearly touching that one, so it's not a great design. I think I'm going to chop 40mm out of that, shorten this, so then these bolts will be back here. And ideally, that pin that goes through the front axle is hollow, and that's originally like where your starting handle went, and that's supposed to be in line with the crank. But if I did that with this, then I couldn't use the viscous fan, because the viscous fan would be too low and there'd be nothing with the blades left. I've had to trim them down already. But it keeps itself nice and cool with that fan on, so I didn't want to make that in line and then not be able to use that fan. I'd have to use an electric fan then, but sort of it works really well, does that. It keeps it cool. You can run it flat out and it doesn't get hot, so I don't want to alter that. I just want to make my chassis rails look better. So I've just drawn that up to see what it looks like, and that's what I'm hoping my new chassis rail is going to look like. And it should be very similar looking to that. I think that looks a lot proper job. That looks more standard rather than this one that just looks like it's had an engine grafted into it. So I think what I'll do is I'll take the bonnet off, take the radiator off, pick the engine up by its lifting points, and then, because it's just sat on the jack under there at the moment, take the flywheel back off again, take the conversion plate off, sort the conversion plate out first. I can bolt that back onto the engine, bolt that up to the tractor, and then get my axle in the right place, and then make the chassis rails, or alter the sump. Right, I've made a bit of progress from earlier. I haven't been recording it, I've just been getting on and doing it, but I'll show you what I've got done. So I've got the engine out, sat on my bench now. So I made a template of the bell housing bolts, which is this piece here. So that fits over on the end of the crankshaft where the flywheel goes on. And then I've just cut these holes out, cut these plates out with holes in for the bolts, and then so I stick that onto the end of the engine, and then them little plates I bolt them up to where they need bolting up to, and then tack them on, and same for the dowels. So they're bolted down tight, and then I tack them on. So that is me template of the engine bolts. And then for the tractor bell housing, I've used that bit of perspex. And then I made that goes onto there, which makes the input shaft central, because without that they can sort of wobble about a bit. So that keeps that central. And then I made this that goes onto there to bring the input shaft past the face of the gearbox. And you drill a hole in the centre of your perspex. That goes in there like that. And then you just very carefully mark where your hole centres are, go around and drill them through like that. And then draw around it. So that's me pattern for me gearbox bell housing. And then I also made that, which goes in the centre of there, so I can put that on there like that. Put that on there like that. This, I'm just using this I'm just showing you, but this needs to be the other way up because it's like a mirror image. Just line up me centre lines, and then this part goes through the middle like that. And lines it all up, and then line my centre lines up like that, and then there to drill through. Oh, I probably won't drill it through into the perspex, but when I get the conversion plate cut out, and just lay it on and then drill them through like that. And to get the shape of the actual plate itself, what I did was I drew around the bell housing onto a bit of card. I took a photo of it on my phone from up above, like square on. Then upload the photo onto Onshape and then trace around it, dimension it all. Add my bits in for where the centre bit is and where the start motor needs to be. And yeah, I just cut it out at 3mm just to see if it was going to work, and I think it is the right shape. I just start motor hole, I think it needs to be a little bit bigger. But it matches up with the gearbox pretty well, so yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Reasons why I'm altering all this as well is because it snapped the centre out of my clutch plate. This was my old clutch plate and it snapped the centre out of it. So I think it maybe wasn't properly all lined up, and this was sort of flexing every time it was going round, and then eventually broke the middle out of it. It done quite a few years of this. It's hardly worn it at all, but it won't do because it's not really getting any hard work. But yeah, I've got a new one of them to go in. The next job I think I'm going to do before I do any more of the conversion plate is alter the sump, because on my old adapter plate I had this bit pressed at the bottom, which then was like another chassis rail from here to the front bit there, so that bolted onto the conversion plate and then to the front. But it stuck down a long way and there was a lot of space underneath, and I didn't really like that. If I can alter the sump and make it shorter, chop all this bit off, make it shorter, and then the back and the bottom chassis rail can be like onto here rather than underneath. I'll take the sump off and see what I can do with that. I've found there's different type of sumps for these engines. This is off a TD25, where mine's a TD27T, but the bolt pattern is the same. Really, I just wanted to swap it for one of them, but I can't find one in this country. This one's in Greece, and I sort of need it this week, or need it before next Wednesday. It's Wednesday today, so I've only got a week, but that would have been perfect, and with a pickup pipe as well. Right, so I'll lift the engine up, drain the oil out, and then we'll whip the sump off, see what I can do with that. Obviously I'll have to alter the pickup pipe as well, and the dipstick, which will be a pain, but so I think I'm going to alter this sump. I'm going to chop that off down there. I was thinking about making a new one like that, but I think that's, they never look quite right when you've fabricated one from scratch. Let's see how, I think I'll chop that off there, we'll fill that side in, and then I'll maybe drill a couple of holes in here somewhere, and then add a piece in from sort of here up to there to gain the oil capacity back that we've lost from chopping that bit off. And the oil pickup pipe will be the same. I can use the original oil pickup pipe without having to alter that. I think that'll be the quickest and best way. So yeah, I'll get that chopped off. I think I've sort of marked it something like, it's not the easiest thing to mark. Right, that's that cut off. Nice and square, I think. Near enough anyway. So I've got a bit of plate now to fill that gap in. Still got the original drain bung. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with the dipstick yet, but we'll worry about that later. So I've got that bit cut out, so we'll TIG weld that round there now. I think it fits reasonably well. Right, I've got that TIG welded all the way around. Don't think it'll leak. And then I've just filled that up with water and tipped it into there, and we're about a litre. It holds about a litre, so a litre less on oil capacity. I don't know whether that'll be a problem or not. It's hold quite a lot. There's one of them completely full that came out of it, and they're 5 litres. And then a little bit in that one. Probably another litre in there, so it's... No, there won't be a litre in there, not a litre. There'll be maybe half a litre in there. So it holds... One, two, three, four. That'll be where 5 litre is somewhere, and it's full right up to the top nearly. So there'll probably be 6 litres in there, or 5.5 litres plus in there. So there'll be 6.5 litres of oil altogether, and now there'll be 5 litres of oil. So I've just drawn that shape up there, and then when you click on that and measure what the volume is, it is that many cubic millimetres. If you convert that into millilitres, it is that many millilitres. So yeah, just to say over a litre. It doesn't matter if it's not bang on, so I'll just cut that out, press that, and I've used a bit of cardboard to sort of mock up the side, and that should give me a litre more oil capacity. So I'll maybe to clean that up, I'll probably hole saw a hole through there and hole saw a hole in there, and then the oil can run in through here and then run out back through there, back to the oil pickup, and then we'll TIG weld that on, tack it on first, and then cut that out, and then do one for the other side, and then weld all that up. Right, so that is that sump all welded up now. I didn't video it because it's, once you've seen the first bit of TIG welding, you've seen it all. And yeah, so that's got me original oil capacity back, or near enough. Yeah, I just need to work out what I'm going to do with the dipstick, but I think I'll get back on with what I was doing before and make me conversion plate, and then I can make my chassis rails, and then I can decide, I'll see how much space I have, where the dipstick's going to go, or whether I can get away with just putting like a sight glass on the side. So that's the sump bolted back on there. Can't bolt it on properly because I'm waiting for a sump gasket to come, and it wants a proper washout as well, and maybe spray it. But just put it back on. I think I am gonna still make a chassis rail come down underneath here. On this other one, I haven't done, I've got like a cross underneath, like that. But this one has more bolts and bigger bolts that bolt the engine onto the adapter plate. See, this is bolted on a bit better. Where this one only has 4 bolts, 4 M10 bolts. Well, the chassis rails are going to come down here and then bolt onto there as well, but I don't know just if there's going to be too much like sideways movement on them 4 bolts. Sort of need to decide now what I'm going to do, because if I do put a bar underneath, then when I've cut the plate out, I'll add a bit on the bottom and then press it for it to bolt up to. So that's the adapter plate without the flywheel on. So I'm just going to take it off again. I'm just going to double check on the gearbox that it's how I want it, and then if it is, I'll cut one out of 10mm, and then we get on and drill the holes. So yeah, I think I'm happy with that. There's metal in all the right places. It's not short anywhere, it's not sticking out too far anywhere. Not that you can really see. I think that'll be near enough. Yeah, I'll get that cut out. I am going to cut it out, that bit on the bottom. If I decide otherwise, I can always cut it off again. Some 10mm there already, so that's handy. So we'll cut it out with that. So that's the adapter plate cut out, and then I've got my perspex laid over the top of it. I've got it lined up best I can with the line. So I'll mark these holes through here now, and then I'll have to remark my centre line on the other side because that's the wrong side, and then sit that onto there the other way up, and then mark them holes through as well. I've flipped the perspex over rather than mark the lines on the other side, line them up on my centre lines. So I've got my dowel holes marked and I've got them drilled through. Just need drilling through completely when it's not on the bench, and then yeah, line it back up with the steel and then mark the engine holes. Right, I think I've about got done with my conversion plate then, so I've just got it sat back on there, sat this on, got it all lined up, and everything seems to match up how it's supposed to do. So that's good. I've pressed that bit on the bottom at 90 degrees and drilled it and tapped it with 3 holes, 3 M12 holes to my bottom chassis wheel too. I've also made some dowels that go into the gearbox, into the dowel holes like it's supposed to have. That back off and I'll show you that. I have just had to diagram a little bit out the start motor hole because it was a bit tight when it meshed. So I'll just diagram a bit out one side. I think that bit there I'll sort of fill in with weld so you can't see it from the other side, because you can see there's a hole there. So I'll just fill that in and then there's not a visible hole. And then that's the other side. Made some little dowels. Very close. I've drilled and tapped the holes for the starter motor as well. That one's very close to the dowel hole, but just misses it. And then dowels go into there and there. Right, so next job is I want to alter this. I want to make them bolts 40mm further back, because as it was the sump was sort of sat on it. So if I move them out of the way, and then my new chassis rails, I'll just make them a bit longer, but I still want to keep that in the same place, and then I don't have to alter these. Plus everything's made to be that length, the bonnet and all the wiring loom and everything. So hopefully I can get that pin out and then yeah, cut a bit out of that. Right, that's that shortened down 40mm feed out. So yeah, we'll get that welded back up. That's a bit of cut out of it. Right, that's that welded up then. Welded around the outside, and then I've also put a runner weld on the inside as well. It's not in the best shape. I maybe would have been better off finding another one, or a better one to shorten. There's a bit of a hole in it there, and it's quite badly pitted. Yeah, but it's quite thick, even where it's got a hole in it, it's still quite thick. So I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, I'm committed now. I've shortened that one. While it's off, I'll draw a pattern of this, because I'll cut a new plate out that this will bolt to as well, rather than altering the other one. You'd think they'd be symmetrical, but they're not. That hole is closer to there than that one is there. I think originally they would have bolted straight onto the front of the engine block, when like the engine block was part of the chassis, but obviously it's not now, so that's why it has to have chassis rails. So I've just bolted that back together. So that's the old adapter plate and the old chassis rails and the old front plate. So I need to sort of copy that. Well, I bolted it back together so I could get this measurement from here to here. And I need that, but 40mm longer now, because I've altered that front bit. So I just need to, well, I could bolt the engine back to the tractor, and it'd be easy if I was putting that front bit, if I was putting that pin dead in line with that, it'd be easy to do it on the tractor, but because I'm not, it's lower, it's going to take a bit more working out. I do have a measurement from the top of the pin to the centre of there. I'm just wondering if I can bolt the conversion plate onto the engine and then sit the whole engine on my bench up again with big squares, and then I could make the chassis rails while it's on the bench rather than in the tractor, which would be a lot easier. I think I'll maybe have a go at doing that. I got the engine sat back on my bench again, and then I've got it fastened on, or clamped onto these squares, so the engine is square with the bench. And I've just got that jack under there just to hold the front up. So now I need to set this up. The measurement I had was between the top of that pin and like the centre of the fan, that bit in the middle there. And my measurement was 220mm, but I do want it lifted up a little bit. Just I can get away with it being slightly higher. Like I said, that there is supposed to be in line with that, which as you can see it isn't, but if it was, I wouldn't have space for that. So I've drawn that front plate. If I cut that out now and bolt that to there, and then I can maybe use one of them other little squares and then clamp that to it, so this will be square. That will be 90 degrees with a bench, and I've just got to get my distance right. From the distance from there to there, which will be the same as that one plus 40 mil. And it will just make it easier to make my chassis rails as well, because I can just draw one, and then the other side should be identical. I think these are the same both sides. Right, just square it up with a bench, get that square with that. And I've got two in that, which means that one is lined up with that hole. But you can see that one's a little bit back, so if I square it up a bit and then the engine square that way and that way, make it easier to get this square. So that's worked out pretty well. One of them is about the right amount. So now when I measure from there to there, I've got just less than 110, and it was 120, so we've gone up sort of 12 mil, which yeah, like what we're now 208. Yeah, so about 12 mil. That's about where we want it. And then I've used their magnets. They're magnets of them, like that, and then they go through the hole. So then two of them sticking that to there. When you measure that from there to there measures 484, which 484 plus 40 mil is 524. I didn't need a calculator to work that out. It's just easier to show you what numbers I'm working with. So 524, so then I've squared that up with that. So now that I know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines is 500 mil, and then I've got that set at 25 on there. I know I wanted 524, but I've got 525, not for still millimetre. And then that block there, it works out right, so I could fit 2 of the pins in it. So I put 2 pins in that, squared that up with that, so that is now square with the table. Clamp that down tight. So now that I know that this is square with that, it's the right measurement I need, the right height that way, and I think it's pretty much in the middle of the crank. Obviously it's not in the middle that way, but it's in the middle that way. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. That table is just a different league altogether. It's such a game changer for stuff like this. And it'll make it a lot easier to make my chassis rails as well, because I've got something flat and consistent to measure off. So get all my measurements, draw it on there. Happy with that as well. Now that bolt is not underneath there. It's a bit high now because I've dropped it a little bit, but yeah, that's a lot better. So start drawing my chassis rails now. So I think I'll make that do for part one. The video is already over an hour long. I don't want to make it too long. I'm just going to include a few clips from when we were at Welland as well last weekend. It's such a good show. I enjoyed every single minute of it. We were there from, like I said, from Wednesday evening till Sunday. And it was just living the dream all weekend. It was brilliant. So I'll include a few clips. We also took my friend's, he has a Ford 8210 with a Perkins 640 V8. It's twin turboed with a big 13mm Bosch P pump on it. And yeah, that went very well. So there's a clip of that. And we also took this grey Fergie that I'm on with now in this video, and we took my friend's Dexter as well, as a Daihatsu 4-track engine in it. But yeah, hope you found it interesting. I know not you're all either into tractors, but there's still quite a bit of engineering and fabrication gone into doing it. It did escalate quite quickly. It was just supposed to be a quick put back together, but anyway, it turned into a full rebuild. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.